Basel III is a regulatory framework for the global banking system. Its main aim is to improve the capital adequacy of banks in order to increase their ability to absorb negative financial shocks and to create a convergence in the measurement of capital adequacy amongst countries. Basel III was created by the Basel Committee in 2010. This committee was established by the central bank governors of 10 countries in 1974 in the aftermath of severe disturbances in international currency and banking markets. This video will discuss the evolution of Basel III and its impacts in Ireland. Basel I, also known as the Basel Capital Accord, was introduced in 1988. In the 1980s, the Latin American debt crisis led to the Basel Committee deciding to strengthen the stability of the international banking system, and so they created Basel I, which meant all banks with an international presence were required to hold capital equal to 8% of their risk-weighted assets. However, various criticisms of Basel I were identified. The main one being the capital requirements imposed by Basel I were limited, and this resulted in regulatory arbitrage whereby some firms were able to take advantage of loopholes in the regulation system in order to avoid unfavourable regulation, resulting in competitive inequalities. This led to the creation of Basel II. Basel II was introduced in June 2004 and improved on the guidelines for capital adequacy with more refined definitions, and it also addressed market risk and operational risk. Thus, it was a more risk-based approach to the regulation of banks. It comprised of 3 pillars. Pillar 1, minimum capital requirements. Pillar 2, supervisory review of an institution's capital adequacy and internal assessment process. Pillar 3, an increase in market disclosure. The key question was whether it would be strong enough in the face of severe financial shocks. The 2007-2008 global financial crisis caused global devastation, particularly in Ireland. Ireland was recognised as the first European country to suffer from the US crisis, as the country was heavily exposed to the property market after it had experienced an uncontrolled real estate bubble. The crisis had an immediate and very severe impact on all aspects of the Irish economy. Banks defaulted, companies defaulted, there was increased debt and an €85 billion bailout from the IMF, and also the bailout of Bank of Ireland, Allied Irish Bank and Anglo-Irish Bank. Overall, the crisis highlighted the fact that Basel II failed to adequately equip banks. Many believe that Basel II was a major contributor to the financial crisis. Even the Basel Committee themselves recognised that Basel II was not sufficient. The main flaws to Basel II are that it involved inadequate levels of capital reserve and liquidity buffers in the banking system. It involved the role of rating agencies in financial regulation, the pro-cyclicality of minimum capital requirements, the fair value assessment of banking assets, and that it completely ignored systemic risk. Simply put, Basel II failed to strengthen the stability of the global banking system. The Basel Committee responded to the financial crisis by creating Basel III in 2010. Its main objective was to improve the banking sector's ability to absorb shocks through the introduction of counter-cyclical and conservation capital buffers. This was done through increasing the minimum capital requirements for common equity capital from 2% to 4.5% of risk-weighted assets and the Tier 1 ratio from 4% to 6%. To reduce systemic risk, systemically important financial institutions were subjected to additional capital requirements. However, just like its predecessors, Basel III is also subject of numerous criticisms. Critics believe that the Basel Committee did not fully learn from the financial crisis and that sticking to a capital-based regulation approach is inadequate, and that risk-based capital regulation can produce disastrous results. Also, it is not a good idea to allow banks to use their own models to calculate regulatory capital, and that it is hazardous to put too much faith in internal risk models like value at risk, as was evidenced in the crisis. Additionally, reliance on credit rating agencies can be detrimental. The Basel Committee are aware of the flaws of Basel III and are currently working on a new framework called Basel IV. It is designed to make banks more resilient and increase confidence in the banking system, including updates to the ways banks calculate their capital requirements with the aim of making outcomes more comparable across banks globally. The following consequences for Irish banks once Basel IV is implemented are a decrease on the reliance of internal models, standardised but more extensive data collection and risk reporting, a change in customer selection criteria, increased transparency in risk reporting, a changing role of credit rating agencies. Will Basel IV be the banking sector's solution? Only time will tell.